Political Desk.
It's been a hot morning of dissecting politics because the president has thrown a gauntlet at us once again, setting in motion what I think was predictable in terms of some sort of commission of inquiry, some sort of independent investigative process that the country needs to go through. And I think one of the callers said it well. We need to get into the deep dives, and that's what for all of the Zondo Commission's failings, what I appreciated about it, watching it, was the kind of detail that can come out of these things. The question is, what do you then do once you have that information, and how do we make sure that the politics doesn't get in the way there as well? But we deep dive on this with two guests this morning. Musa Mdunge is a political analyst who's joined us before on the Political Desk. Musa, welcome to Power Breakfast.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we also have Professor Alex van der Heever from the Wits School of Governance with us this morning. Prof, thanks so much for making the time.
Good morning.
So Musa, I want to start with your reaction to what you heard last night. If you were the president of the country, would you have made the same moves?
Well, look, given if I was the president of the country where the Department of State Security is under me,
Yay!
I would have taken more immediate action. And there are many questions here for me, Tess, because these accusations really sit to the heart of the fact that here's a department squarely in the president's office. And when you have accusations like this, it's quite telling. I would rather have gone for an option of a Chapter 9 institution or give this commission Chapter 9 institution powers, because as a quasi-legal process, it really doesn't go far. We've been here before. We know the story. We know how this will end. And what we need is more definitive and stronger action from the president, because this really sits at the heart of rule of law. And if we're talking about the South African economy and you're trying to impress investors, all they're asking is who's running this country, period.
Yeah. And it did have that air of the president kind of kicking the can down the road, as it were, proverbial can down the road, as it were, which many people are saying you should expect that from a Ramaphosa presidency. But I hate the idea that we have to become comfortable and complacent in the idea that the president is going to act but not act, that there's going to be this indecisiveness at every step of the way. I actually, Musa, because I had missed the announcement of Kachalia coming in as acting minister initially and thought, oh, this is quite decisive. He's, it's a chop, it's a move on, it's making sure that the country understands how seriously he's taking this. And then when I saw this, the tailspin that he had put himself into to try and retain Mdunge, I was actually really quite disappointed by that one. But Prof. Van der Heever, maybe, we're expecting too much here. Maybe the governance of this country requires the kind of slow and deliberative approach that the president is taking.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's the case here. I think given the information that was made public, the Minister of Police should have been removed. And I think that a move like putting Prof. Kachalia in as minister, not as acting minister, but as minister, would have been a good one, because he doesn't come across as somebody who's going to have a tainted record.
Yeah,
he is somebody who will kind of oversee that difficult department. But there's a cesspool there, and it's actually quite a dangerous position. And so you've also got to have other interventions that start to look at this, because what was implied at the end of the day was murderous collusion within the South African police, because essentially when you unravel the police killings task force, political killings task force, you're saying we're dampening down, we're deprioritizing political killings, which are at the heart of the corruption that's going on in the state. So this is big stuff. You want a strong minister. You want somebody who's and you want the investigations that should proceed to now proceed within the police. So that's
right.
Quite aside from having a commission of inquiry to go into all sorts of other things.
Yes.
So I think that was not decisive, and it's problematic. And acting ministers don't act decisively.
And I believe that was a misstep as well, Prof. initially when I first read it, I'd missed the part, or listened to it, I guess. I'd missed the part about it being acting, and I was really disappointed when I realized what the implications of that are, because it does feel for me, and maybe you could comment on this, that the president is stretching the bounds of his constitutional powers to make all of this possible right now.
Yeah, so here he didn't have to stretch his powers in order to replace the minister, and that's
Yes.
the first issue. But aside from the stretching of the powers, you ask whether this was a logical decision. The logical decision was remove the minister. There's sufficient evidence without a commission of inquiry to know that the minister lied to Parliament. And that's grounds in this kind of position to just have the person removed. There's no trust in him in the general public. He can't be in that position anymore. There's nothing that's going to exonerate him. So that's quite aside from all of the other issues that now apply, which the general public need to have confidence in the government. So the public doesn't have it. So you have to make moves which are consistent with restoring confidence in a way that now nails it down. We have to be sure in the way that you've applied it.
Yeah.
Now we've got to wait. And now the problem becomes results. And commissions of inquiry have had results in terms of recommendations. And you can go through a whole litany of them where nobody at a senior level of government has been held to account, ultimately, regardless of the recommendations. They might have fingered individuals and ministers, but they all sit there.
Yeah.
And this goes right down to Life Esidimeni. And that particular case,
Yeah.
a sitting MEC is identified as somebody who should be charged. They haven't been charged.
And
nothing's happened.
No political consequences even. And I think the lower bar than legal consequences is political consequences. And I think the president missed the opportunity around the political consequences that could be meted out. Because, Prof, one of our callers was saying, well, what if he's not found to be guilty? Which, your sense is that there's so much evidence here that might be implausible. But my question is, what if he does get found to be criminally liable here? Then we've been paying somebody who we didn't have to be paying, because the president has the prerogative to do something different. But Musa, I want to get back to you, because at the same time in England, the Labour Party finds itself in a sort of similar position, where there's a lot of pressure coming for the Prime Minister there to fire some of his cabinet members. And there it seems to be, it's such a different kind of conversation than the one we're having here, where, number one, the public pressure actually seems to matter quite a bit to the Prime Minister and his career and his choices. And on the other hand, the public is used to the idea that when there's a lack of trust in political figures, that they have to go. And that's not seen as a train smash. Here, we seem to think that we have to treat political figures with kid gloves, even in the face of a lack of trust.
Yes, certainly. And I mean, it boils down really, if you think about it, to our political system. I think in the UK, given voters there know their power.
Yeah.
And the system is built in such a way that politicians know that I'm here today and I'm gone tomorrow, because the margins of victory are such that no one political party in a constituency will even win about 40% of the electorate. And so because of that, politicians there's a built-in humility in the system that, the South African political system, if you're honest, since 94 has not been such. The ANC has almost always had unfettered power, achieving above 60%. This is the first time where they find themselves as a 40 percentile party. And the implications are you see it in how the president reacts. The fact that he doesn't fully fire the minister, the fact that he puts this commission of inquiry that will drag on with 3-month interim reporting and then 6 months reporting, tells you the story here about the ANC's challenge here, because Minister Mkhunu was seen as a potential presidential candidate. He was quite critical to Ramaphosa's own political rise. Yeah. If you think about his impact in KZN in getting about even 20% of the membership towards Ramaphosa's
and that goes as far as the 2017 conference.
2017 conference, right? And so you've got 2027 lurking around, and there are huge political implications. And you see it in how even in the appointment of Professor Kachalia, right? He didn't choose an obvious ANC person within his own cabinet to do that. He understands the implications. And I think that I agree with him to choose a more neutral figure.
Absolutely.
In that sense. But what powers, how is he going to embolden Professor Kachalia as he goes into a lion's den in a cabinet that can effectively trust? And that's the question for me. Can he trust the people he has to work with? Here's a president, I'm going back to this point, where he sitting under his department, him, is the state security. And the fact that we're having these questions is quite damning. And should we then not even be investigating the president's own role here in terms of managing state security? Has he not faltered? And why is this not part of the investigation?
I want to shoot that one straight to you, Prof. Alex. The president having state security under the presidency has not been part of the conversation, I think, enough in the last week or so. Because, of course, we also have Dumisani Kumalo that was arrested just recently. So there's been a lot of activity in the security apparatus of late. But the president having that line of sight has not been part of the conversation thus far. So two questions on that one, Prof. One is, do you believe that the president has something to answer for in terms of the state security apparatus being under his direct oversight? And the second is the powers of the new Minister of Police, given that the other Minister of Police is not fully sacked. Does this in any way, either in at a political level or at a legal level, limit the powers of the new Minister of Police?
Yeah, so I think that the problem with everything that we're seeing at the moment is that the politics of the ANC electoral conference is more important than the politics of people who elect the government, because if there's slowness to act, it's around that. And so when we see this kind of weak appointment of the sort of tiptoeing around the issue, it shows basically that the public matters considerably less than an electoral conference.
Yeah.
And the electoral conferences, we know, are polluted by patronage and interests where people are basically stealing from the state to get into senior positions within the ANC. And that's what makes him tentative.
Yeah.
It puts him in a difficult position, and that's the difference between South Africa's politics and the UK politics. It's more difficult there.
And Minister Mkhunu is a definite political ally of the president's. That is common knowledge.
And so that shouldn't be how he's making his decisions. So the problem with the powers that the interim minister has is that, first of all, everybody within that department thinks, oh, he could come back. So you're going to limit what you do within that context. The people within that department are really in a holding pattern, and the acting minister, what can he do but other than perhaps provide some information? Note that you come in completely cold into that, so it's about a 6 to 12 month learning curve just to get a handle on that department, and you potentially have no team. So just to note that on the question of the president's role, there's a concentration of power in terms of state security and the rest, which is highly problematic. Also with the SIU and their proclamations, we should be seeing is the establishment of a security structure in which the political element, the executive, is not able to deploy people into that structure, because that is basically from a health department to an SOE. The moment you have members of the executive appointing people into the top structures of those organizations, you can establish networks of extraction. And that's what we've seen across the board. And it applies to the police. It applies potentially to the NPA. It applies to the State Security Agency, to the SIU. And as a consequence, you can have collusion, a concentration of power.
Right.
That comes to the heart of this, because what we are seeing is people are insulated from accountability because of that concentration.
Yeah.
So absolutely, the State Security Agency, the SIU, all of those structures, the fact that the president appoints the commissioners, all of those things is something that has to be unraveled A commission of inquiry could potentially make recommendations on that kind of overriding structure, and that would be good. But in terms of the immediate capture of police structures, NPA structures, etc., that does have to be dealt with. And I would have said put an independent minister in charge. And I agree that the issue of putting another Chapter 9 institution that can be trusted into the pot would also have been a good and productive move.
The EFF has already helped us with that by going to the PP on this matter. But also what you're highlighting here is that this Minister of Police also has to deal with the question of General Sibiya and Fani Masamula and the ways in which they are implicated in this. Of course, the president pronouncing on them would have been irregular, but somebody needs to pronounce on them and their roles in all of this in the meantime, I would assume. But Marcus from Mamelodi, I just want to give you an opportunity to get in on this one as we wrap up.
Tesla.
Marcus, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I know South Africans must forget, man. This thing, Ramaphosa is protecting his allies. The conference is coming, so you cannot break this cycle because they already know who is going to be elected in a conference. So if you are removing people, then we are breaking that chain, the people who are going to be elected. So, and most South African people, they are just talking on the radio, Twitter, and they know that this thing is going to die down. So they have experience of us, as you that nothing will happen.
Is this just a simple case again of party over country? And I think that even John Robbie raised that this morning. That's increasingly what this feels like. But thank you so much, Marcus from Mamelodi, for reminding us the reality check that the politicians are often looking after their own interests before ours. But thank you also to Musa Mdunge, political analyst, and Professor Alex van der Heever from the Wits School of Governance for just giving us their insights into this pressing conversation.